Having clean books is so important when it comes to a therapy practice. And yet, I mean, if you're like me, it's one of those things that maybe got neglected or is still getting neglected. I know for a long time in my business, it was something I was trying to manage on my own and doing a terrible job of. Well, today, Gretchen Roberts with Red Bike Advisors joins us to talk about the importance of bookkeeping, the importance of having organized numbers, and how it can help you scale your practice. My name is Craig, and I'm the CEO of Daisy Financial Coaching. Our goal is simple: to help you run a therapy practice that is permanently profitable. If you own a solo or group practice, we're here to help you build a business that creates more time, makes more money, and serves more people. This is the Therapy Business Podcast. All right, we have Gretchen here. Gretchen, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Craig?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for being here to talk about bookkeeping. Now, people who are listening, okay, I know bookkeeping sometimes can seem like a topic. You're like, oh my gosh, do I want to hear about bookkeeping? But I promise you do, because it's super valuable. And I truly believe it can save you tons and tons of money in your business, because there's probably a lot of things under the surface that you don't even know is there. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. And I should actually start off by admitting that I myself am not a bookkeeper. I am a business owner. And so, like pretty much probably your whole audience, I don't actually go into my QuickBooks all the time, and I don't mess around in there, right? But I do understand that that having clean books is super important for every business owner, because you need to know your numbers. So before people make the assumption that I'm the nerdy person in there categorizing the transactions, I'm actually not, but I'm actually a huge advocate of doing that. So we can talk more about that.
Love it. Yeah. And what's fun too, I mean, I'm part of the Profit First organization, and every year we go to this conference, and it's, I'm one of the few coaches there. Most of them are accountants and bookkeepers, and they're a fun group of people. You'd be surprised how fun, what you would just assume are numbers people who are quiet and introverted. No, that's I've learned is not the case. We all have assumptions that are clearly wrong. And so, yeah. So Gretchen, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your business, what you do, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm the CEO of Red Bike Advisors, and we are an accounting, bookkeeping, tax strategy planning, and filing firm. We also do fraud and forensic accounting, which is kind of cool. And we do tax resolution we call that the medic side of the business, so when people don't pay their taxes, or if they get into any kind of financial trouble, we've got you on that side too. So we are based in Wilmington, North Carolina, but we serve clients, mostly small business owners all over the U.S., a lot of service businesses, such as therapy consultants or therapy businesses. We do a lot of dentists, so a lot in the medical space. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so how did you get started in this industry? Have you always, because you kind of alluded to at the beginning that you're not really, the numbers is maybe not isn't what you fell in love with. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's actually an interesting little origin story. I actually have a marketing and sales background, and I was working in corporate America as a director of customer marketing, and I had a little midlife crisis last year, and I bought an accounting firm. So I felt like my skill set was somewhat transferable, and I really love this business because I've always been a numbers person. Mm-hmm. I'm not a bookkeeper. I'm not in there doing my own books, but I love to pull my reports and analyze how my business is doing. I really believe in the idea of knowing your numbers as a business owner to help you make strategic decisions and to grow. And even things like, can I afford to hire somebody? There's a lot of questions that business owners have, and it always is going to end up boiling down to the numbers. And if you don't know your numbers, it's really hard to make those decisions. So I ended up in accounting in sort of a circuitous way, but I'm really, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot more fun than it sounds, to your point.
I bet. Well, and I might have to pick your brain too at some point, because that's something I've shied away from even in what we offer. Cause I personally have zero interest in bookkeeping, learning it. Cause that's just not, I'm very similar to you. That's not my headspace. That's not where I thrive. But we've always thought about maybe we somehow serve our clients in that capacity, but I'm like, I don't want to have to learn bookkeeping and manage a team on it. So clearly you can do it without being a bookkeeper, which is amazing. So I think that's great. And it's similar to, these therapy practice owners, although they know the craft of providing therapy, really their
Hmm.
role is shifting into this. I'm going to run the business and do less of the therapy and
Yeah.
less of the day-to-day work. And so having that business mindset gives you that leg up versus if you were an accountant who's trying to learn how to run the business, you get to come in kind of the opposite. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of accounting firms will be founded by somebody who's a CPA or they're a trained accountant, and then they have to learn the business side. And I think that's very similar to therapy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you start as a therapist, and then you decide to go out on your own. We actually have a couple of clients like that, and now they're going. Now I have HR and IT and
Mm-hmm.
cybersecurity and accounting and bookkeeping, and so there are certain places where you just have to go, you know what, I don't really know this to the depth I need to be, to be effective at it. And there are certain things I outsource to, like I don't do my own IT, and I don't do my own bookkeeping either, to that point. And so I think as a business owner, you just have to understand, what are my strengths and weaknesses. We do have several medical and dental clients who they kind of enjoy doing the books as like their little 9 p.m. hobby,
Mm.
but most of them just don't want to be bothered with it, right? And so you just have to understand which category you fit into, and then you have to make time and space and put in your budget the things that you really are not good at, so you can leverage your time on the things you are good at.
That's so true. And, I did my own books for years and not well. And it's simply because I was being probably cheap or trying to cut costs. I mean, that's what we are always trying to do is find where
Oh
can we
yeah.
balance that. And then, but every year around tax time, I would have to dedicate a whole day to cleaning up the mess that I had made all year when I wasn't doing a great job of keeping up with it and reconciling a whole year's worth of accounts because I was lazy and just didn't do it during the year. So,
Yeah.
this year is the first time I've outsourced the bookkeeping, and it's been just amazing not having to deal with that. And I think I can focus my energy elsewhere, and it's been such a great investment for me to put in. And then to your point, now I can go in and look at the numbers, and I know that they're more accurate than when I was doing them, and I
Mhm.
have more clarity on the numbers when I'm not in there doing the bookkeeping myself. Versus, which seems kind of counterintuitive, but is that what you typically see? People are like, "Oh, this is so much better. I've got a much better understanding what's happening."
So there's a couple things in what you said. So the first thing I'd say is there is a moment in time in your business when you should be doing that yourself.
Hmm.
The reason for that is you need to understand your income and expenses at that super granular level, right? And that's typically when you're starting off and you're building something from scratch. But then there does come this sort of inflection point where it's like, this is not really the highest and best use of my time. It's like I'm still cleaning toilets and I should be bringing in new customers or whatever, right? So, so as an example, I have a large, well, I mean, large is relative, right? But I have a fairly large accounting firm that I'm running. We have 18 staff members. And so I'm not doing my own books in the accounting firm, but I do own two rentals, and I do profit first on those, and I do my own books for those. And I have to say, when the 10th and the 25th of the month roll around and I'm doing my books for those two properties, I'm always like, ugh, you know, I don't enjoy it, but those properties don't really make enough money for me to fob that off,
Hmm.
right? They're just rentals. And so I just have to deal with it. But, there's some point where your business gets big enough that it is worthwhile to hand it off. And then I do think there's some magic that happens where all of a sudden from you're in the weeds and let's use the forest and trees, right? Like you're in all the trees, but then all of a sudden you're at the 10,000 foot view, and you can start running your P&L and looking for patterns, and you can run your balance sheet and see how it's changing over time as you pay off loans or add assets or whatever's going on in your company. And you can look at your cash flow reports and start doing a little bit of forecasting. And I know that probably sounds really weird and scary because a lot of people don't even know how to look at their P&L. But,
Hmm.
that's what I think that's, something that your accountant can help you with. We do a thing called Know Your Numbers monthly reporting, and we'll send the reports out, but we always try to pull something out and say, hey, we noticed this, or you're trending this way. We'll do meetings with people to help them understand where they're at and where they're heading. I'm going to say one thing though. There's a lot of people that aren't interested even in that. I literally just got an email from a client. There was a bug in QuickBooks and her billing got shut off. And I spent a long time on the phone trying to get that fixed today. And I emailed her and I said, I'm so sorry. There's a bug. They have a case open. And she's like, "Oh, I don't care. I've never been in my QuickBooks." She's like, "That's for you guys." And it just kind of made me laugh. And I went, I think that there's definitely a percentage of business owners who probably just open their bank account every day on their mobile phone and they check their bank balance and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, cool, I have enough money to make payroll this week," and that's kind of the end of it. And that's, you can get by with that for a while, but if you're serious about running a business and growing and creating an asset that is eventually sellable, you do want to have a finer point on it than just checking your bank balance every day.
100% agree with that. And we with what we do with our clients, it's kind of that balance. And since we don't do the bookkeeping, we always say the books and your P&Ls and all your accounting documents are really a reflection of what's been happening in your business. So it's a great snapshot, and it can help you predict what's going to happen. And then the bank account and profit first, and using those and leveraging those is really for the day to day, how making those small decisions. But that doesn't mean we ignore the big picture. And, with our clients, we're every quarter or so, we're looking at, here's what percentages we're doing with your bank accounts. Let's look at your P&L and see, is your spending matching what we're doing? Are we ahead of the curve? Are we behind the curve? And so I think it's a both and. It's not an either or. It's, you have to have a day-to-day management system, and you have to be on top of your numbers and have some good reporting, especially when tax time comes around, which I know that's what you do too. And have you ever had to deal with clients who have messy books when it's time to file their taxes, or have just terrible organized numbers?
Yeah, we deal with that quite a bit, actually. And a lot of times they don't even know it because maybe they're doing it themselves or they have an office manager or something like that. And so they think they're being done. But the reality is, when you're doing them yourself or you have somebody in your office doing them, they're not really trained, right? Mm-hmm. And so, maybe they're classifying transactions, but most of the time we find, and I've talked to other accounting firms about this, and I think the rule of thumb is something like 80 to 90% of books are just really not where they need to be, right? And whether that is that, they're coming to us and we're taking them over, we usually have a pretty significant cleanup job to do. A lot of times things are wrong on the balance sheet, and those have to be corrected. They just haven't been logged correctly or logged at all. And just a couple examples there that might relate to, your audience is, let's say you have a therapy practice and then you buy a building. That may be done in a separate LLC, which we would recommend. But if you do it under the practice, then, sometimes that just doesn't even get put in the books because you're doing your own books and you have no idea that you have to record that, right?
Yeah.
So just little things like that. So yeah, at tax time, what ends up happening is we do sort of the accountant scramble, and we do what's called tax to books, and we make all these adjustments to get it to a place where we can get the tax return done. But that doesn't mean the person has a clean and clear view of what's going on in their business. It means we were able to complete the tax return in a way that is, that would pass the IRS, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So we have everything majorly categorized, et cetera. And so we have all those major questions answered. And if there are things that we can't categorize or we can't identify, we won't let the client cannot take them as deductions, basically, right? So they're losing out at tax time if they're not properly categorizing things ahead of time. And I don't know about you, but just the other day, my husband's like, "Oh, we need to sit down and go over the Venmo account, and I need to know what all that stuff was you bought." I'm like, "That was months ago. I don't remember any of that."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's the same in business. You do it once a month, it's not too bad. But if you do it once a year, nobody remembers what they did in March,
No.
And so then it's like, well, if we can't figure out where that goes, we can't really put it as a deductible expense. So it really is better to keep up all year on the tax side.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I've been there, like I was saying, when I was doing my own, and it'd be the end of the year and I was dedicating that whole day. I was going through Amazon orders because I'm going, I don't remember what I ordered on Amazon. That was $52.78. Or sometimes the vendor would come in with just an acronym and I'm going, what is that place? And come to find out it's from when I traveled for business to Kansas City, and it's this random, spot or whatever, hotel something. So I get that. Yeah. If you're doing it in a more timely manner, it's going to get make your life easier, get things categorized more easily as well. And so on that note, because I'm seeing that that's mistakes that I made, and when therapists go through grad school, no one teaches them this stuff. No one says, here's what to
Yeah.
do if you decide to buy a building one day, or here's how to manage your own books, or here's how to do these things. So what are some common things you see among business owners, some mistakes they're making, maybe, or even misconceptions that you see when they come in to meet with you before they hire you to help them out?
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest one is honestly, it's, I don't know if it's a mistake so much. It's what we all do is you're just bootstrapping for maybe
Mm-hmm.
for too long. Right. So I just had a conversation with one of our dental clients, because their books are basically an atrocious mess. Um, and, and of course they don't think they are. And so I told them, look, we had to spend this much time to get it just ready for tax. And, here's the thing though, everything that's coming out of my mouth right now, like clients don't care. Business
Mm-hmm.
owners don't care if their books are clean. They don't care how hard the tax return is to put together. So I can talk about mistakes they're making from this inside baseball point of view. Like it's so important to have those clean books, because if you don't have them, you can't make future forward financial decisions,
Mm-hmm.
things that you can do with Profit First, for example, and you can't take advantage of all the tax deductions that are available to you, right? So there's two money saving reasons to have clean, up to date books, but most clients don't really place a premium on that. They kind of think of it as like, this is something I have to do, and so I'm going to sort of do it, at this lower level and kind of get by, but it's not something I'm spending time or money on because, they're busy. Like there's so
Mm-hmm.
many directions a business owner gets pulled in, right? And so this is never at the top of their list. When we send business owners it's called Ask My Accountant. It's like the spreadsheet of, I don't know how to classify these transactions, like
Mm-hmm.
from that random Kansas City travel trip you took. Um, they don't, at the end of the day, like they've been seeing patients all day, and the last thing they want to do is sit down at their desk and be like, oh, I'm going to classify all my transactions now, right?
Right.
So I think that's kind of a big one, but I guess like if I back way out and say what is the biggest mistake, it's probably not those little things. I think it's the idea that finance is a primary driver of business. And to your point, a lot of people who go to professional school are not trained in finance at all.
Right.
At all. And so they might not even know what a balance sheet is, or how to read it. And that's okay. But, if you're going to be a business owner, you have to say, okay, I'm not going to do my own bookkeeping. I'm not going to do my own taxes. I'm not going to do my own IT. And I could name some other ones that people don't want to do. But you do have to say, I need a working knowledge of this to be a better business owner. And to make my business sustainable. And if I think about the number one thing that would make a business sustainable besides sales and marketing, it's having a really good grasp on your finances.
Yes, and you're right. No, most people don't, and it's a vulnerable thing too. It's we get it a lot where people are almost embarrassed, and that can sometimes
Mm-hmm.
prevent them from starting. I felt that way before going. I had close friends who are bookkeepers through the Profit First organization who I was connected with who would offer to help me with my books. I'm like, I don't want you seeing what a mess it is. It's embarrassing because, I work with people on their finances and mine is just an unorganized mess. So business owners, I think it's a vulnerable thing to come and say, here, look at my numbers, dissect it. But I
Yeah.
do agree. I think that people are missing out on just growth opportunities when you don't know what's going on with the finances. It's so important.
Yeah. And I do think there's sort of two buckets of people, right? So, and I'm a member of an accounting association, like a professional association. And I was leading some marketing workshops for them, and because that's my background, and we were talking about how to market to get clients, and we were talking about what percentage of people that you bring on for bookkeeping and tax like really care, and they want to meet with you every month, and they're super interested in it. And we decided it's probably like 20%, maybe 80% just they don't, it is sort of a compliance thing. They're just like, get it done. Don't bother me. Right.
Right.
And that's fine. It's fine. That's fine too, because it still does need to be done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And even going back to like, if you have a real business that's an S corp or a partnership or a C corp, you have to have a formal set of books. It's required by the IRS in order to do your tax return, right? You can get away with less if you have just a pass through LLC that goes on your individual return. That's a Schedule C, but so you don't necessarily have to have all the same stuff. But for the business tax returns, the IRS does require more, right? And so you do have to comply from that perspective. And if all people want is compliance, that's okay, right? Because we're still providing them a service they can't or shouldn't or don't want to do themselves. That other 20%, that's where it's a lot of fun. I think that's where you play. I love working with business owners who are excited to grow and who want to understand their KPIs in relation to others in their industry, benchmarking how they're performing, asking big questions like, should I acquire this adjacent facility? Should I hire this key employee, and what's the right timing for that? Should I make this investment in sales and marketing? So I love working with people who have those questions, and we can look at the numbers to help them answer them.
Yes, that's the type of people we work with. Like you were talking about, that's the playground. That's fun. And, we have, since we don't offer the bookkeeping, we do have a lot of people who are getting that stuff done for the compliance reasons. And then likely their bookkeeping and accountant don't offer that advisory side of things. And so that's where they come to us, and we can take the data that their bookkeeper and advisor are doing and then do what you're just talking about, have some fun with strategizing and using that money to leverage that growth. So I think it's great that you're doing that as well with your clients and offering that. And I wish more would take advantage of it, because I think that there's just so much value in that. There's not many people speaking into their business through that lens of profitability and through that lens of finances. They're probably hiring consultants and coaches who are saying grow, and that's all they care about is the growth metrics. But there's a whole other side of it, is how to do it in a financially healthy and wise and smart way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's easy to grow your revenue, but you have to always look at the bottom line. I mean, if you're a business owner, what are you in this for? Right.
Right.
I hate when I talk to business owners and they're like, oh, I never pay myself, or, I do pay myself, but I pay myself like $30,000 a year. And it's like, what are you doing? You're probably working 80 hours.
Exactly.
You deserve more than that. You're taking all the risk on. You have that burden, that 2 a.m. burden that nobody else has, and you deserve to be well compensated for that. And if you're not, you need some kind of numbers detective to help you figure out how to get there. And I think that's one of the principles of Profit First that I think is, it's probably one. There's a lot of great things about Profit First, but I think my number one is that takeaway of, as the business owner, you need to be paying yourself a decent amount of money, and you may not be able to right away, but that's the first goal you need to work toward, is paying yourself. Yeah.
Yep. That's what we resonate with the most too, is that the business should support your lifestyle. And that's what we are big believers in. Yes, under the hood, there is this more moral reason that we are doing that. We love to help people. Therapists are wanting to make an impact on their community and help people. But truthfully, and this is us too, helping people with their finances. That's our passion. We want to help people change that. But I could go work for somebody else and do that and make a good salary. The reason I started a business was because I wanted control over my income and my time. And as business owners, we just fall into that trap where we are working long hours and making way less and treating ourselves way worse than we would ever accept from any other boss. And so I think it's an easy trap to fall into and a hard one to know how to get out of if you don't have control of your numbers, like you were just saying.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you're right about therapists in particular. There's a lot of people who go into something because it's a true vocation, right? Mm-hmm. And for us, like, we think of our mission is to help our small business clients create value. And I think of it as a whole ecosystem, right? So it's the small business owner, but they're growing the value of their business. That in turn helps their customers and clients. They're part of their vendors are part of their ecosystem getting value as well. Their employees are getting value from the business. And ultimately, it should be an asset, a legacy that they can leave to their family.
Yeah.
And so, to like that's why I show up to work every day. It's not to make money, but to your point, I mean, I also work really hard, and I am working to build an asset. And I think every business owner should think of themselves as a business owner. So you can think of yourself as a therapist, or you can think of yourself as a CPA or whatever you are. But if you are running a business, you have to first put on that business owner hat and say, what are we doing for our ecosystem? What's our why, right?
Yeah.
And then that has to also involve you and your family.
100%. Completely agree. It's, and it's not selfish. It's not, there's nothing wrong with wanting those things and to prioritize those things. And I think that water can get muddied in the therapy world, because that's just at their core. They're typically a therapist. It has a compassionate heart for others and one to put others first, and forgetting that it's okay to be profitable and to make money doing something and to charge your value and do all those things. And so Gretchen, if there's a therapist out there listening who has their spreadsheet, they have an Excel sheet with a few of their expenses, they don't have a bookkeeping software, they've never managed it, and this is resonating, and they're thinking, okay, I need to start doing something to get this organized so I can get some clarity. What would you recommend being the first step in getting stuff together and getting organized?
Yeah. So we actually are bringing on a new client that has been operating for 3 years, and they don't have any books at all. And so we're literally starting them from scratch. So it's a lot, right? To reconstruct 3 or 4 years of books from scratch.
Yeah.
But I think the way I'd answer that is to say, you need to get clarity on what you want, right? So if you're a business and you're filing a business return, then you really do need to get into software so you can have the trifecta. It's the P&L, the balance sheet, and the cash flow report. And you need those 3 things for tax time. But again, I don't think tax time is even the most important thing. So the way we talk about it is we think of it as a pyramid. And at the bottom of the pyramid is clean books. And you have to have those to build on that with money saving tax strategy. And then you can further build on that with financial advisory, such as profit first advisory, cash flow forecasting, things like that. So the starting point is really to get into a software like QuickBooks. That's the one we use, but there are other ones. I think, like there's Xero, and I think some people use Wave. So it just depends on what you're comfortable with if you want to try it yourself. But if you feel like you're at the point where your practice is, it's past the point where you want to personally be sitting there at your desk at 9 p.m. on a Thursday, classifying your transactions, then just hire somebody, right? It's just like, I would not do my own therapy. I would hire one of you. There are certain things that only pros can do, right? So you just have to recognize, where you're at in your journey, and then make your decision. Am I going to try to do this myself? The advantage to doing it yourself is that you do get a really intimate view of things that you probably haven't looked at in a long time. Like, what am I really spending on stuff, right? And there are some advantages to that, to, paying your bills and classifying everything and really understanding where your money's going. But at some point, that's not where your time should go.
Yeah, I agree. Well, there's people out there listening, I'm sure, who are wanting to take that next step. So how can people get in touch with you if they want either help building that foundation of the pyramid, or maybe they have that and they're just kind of looking for that next level of growth or support, or some forensic analysis into their business? How can somebody get in touch with you to work with you and your team?
Yeah, so we're at redbikeadvisors.com. So you can go there and check out our services. There's a free strategy session that we offer. It would be me or one other person in the firm, and we'll kind of get on a call and just listen to what are your business goals? What are you looking for in the next 3 to 5 years? Or, where do you want to head? What are your pain points today? And then usually from there, we can offer, a suite of services that'll help alleviate some of those pain points and help them get to the next level.
Great. We'll link all that stuff in the show notes so that people can get there and get some help. But I really, really appreciate this. Has been a lot of fun to talk about. See, at the top of the recording, I said it's more fun than we think it is to talk about these things, and it's not as overwhelming and scary. So I appreciate you making it something that's really digestible and not going over our heads. And yeah, just thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. It's been great being here.
Thanks for joining us on the Therapy Business Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a practice owner that you may know. If your practice needs help getting organized with its finances or just growing your practice, head to therapybusinesspod.com to learn how we can help.